Blue Mesa gathered the way it always did when something might turn ugly. Men leaned on rails, boots hooked, hats pushed back. Women staged themselves a safe glance away beneath the awning outside Pennyworth's. Children carried information like sparks. It was auction day, and a mustang that had made fools of 3 counties stood dark and dangerous in Crane's high pen. Cora Whitcomb didn't look at the men who coughed useless into their hands. She watched the horse. The mustang was coal dark, crescent scar at the throat latch like a pale brand left by the moon. He tested each board with the weight of one hoof, as if reading wood, and Cora knew he was measuring exits more than enemies. Virgil Tull strutted to the middle with a grin bright as a spittoon lid. "Folks," he called, sweeping his hat, "I give you the devil that emptied 2 saddles and jumped a corral at Willow Wash. Name's Harrow. I'll have him taking a bit and dragging a log by sundown." Laughter rose like summer flies. "Start him at 40. Oswald Crane said, flat as ledger paper. Silence held a second. $40 was money you could taste. Cora lifted her hand. 40. Her voice didn't tremble. Head swiveled. Someone laughed through his nose. "Cora, you fixing to knit him a halter?" 45, Virgil purred, just to push the price in the joke. "Got to keep the show expensive." Cora felt Nettie Hale's eyes on her from the awning. Felt Ephraim Pike's stillness by the smithy door like a tree that had refused every wind. She thought of the paper on Crane's desk, the one that said the Whitcomb place could be someone else's by winter. She thought of her mother's hands and how they never hurried. 50, Cora said. The air changed. Sheriff Amos Rudd rubbed 2 coins together. A quiet crick-crick of thought. Crane tipped his head, tapping his ledger corner. Virgil rolled his shoulders, weighing amusement and annoyance. "Sold," Crane said too fast, because sometimes power was not the price but the pace. Harrow pawed once, like a blacksmith's bellows chest. Cora climbed the pen with no rope and no halter in hand, and set herself inside the rectangle of dust and boards and eyes. Someone hooted. Someone said, "Fetch her a priest." She stood still. The mustang watched her with one ear and then the other. Cora breathed in for 4, out for 6. The way Mama taught, make your breath the largest animal in the pen. She dropped her gaze so it landed soft on the slope of his shoulder. Never the eyes. The sun pressed. Flies scribbled small curses. Somewhere a child Tom Finch, she knew by the cadence, counted to 5 before whispering, "She ain't moving." "Get your rope on him, girl," Virgil called. "Teach him manners before he teaches you the ground." Cora did not answer. She lifted one hand, slow as a thought, fingers loose, palm turned a little sideways so it looked small. Harrow's skin rippled. He swung his hindquarters away, face turning, neck arched tight. Cora pivoted with him. No chase, no challenge, only a mirror that breathed. When he stopped, she stopped. When he blinked, she blinked. When he shifted, she let her boot scuff a whisper. Minutes are long when a town expects blood. Laughter thinned into a braid of bets and mutters. Sheriff Rudd's coins made their soft cricket noise. Ephraim's hands closed and opened around absence. Cora took one step and then another, waiting between them, until she could feel the heat off Harrow's shoulder. She kept her eyes on the base of his mane and let her arm extend until the backs of her fingers kissed the idea of hair, not touching. Promise of touch. Harrow trembled and blew a breath. It wasn't surrender, it was consideration. She stood it. She let him think. Then with the smallest motion, she turned her hand and offered the width of her knuckles to the air beneath his jaw. The stallion tipped his head a 1/4 inch. Cora brought her hand back like a gift she meant to save. He followed that inch, curious. "Lord save us," someone said. He's following her hand. Virgil's whistle died on his teeth. Cora slid her hand along the air again, not touching, shaping a path toward the gate. Harrow followed 2 steps, 3, then froze when the crowd shifted. She stopped too and hummed the first line of Shady Grove, so low it was mostly breath. Harrow's ears flicked forward and back, forward again. She did not try to halter him. She did not claim more than he could bear. She backed away, slipped through the slats, and climbed down to the ring of heat and judgment. "You paid $50 to stand still?" Crane sneered. Cora tucked a stray hair behind her ear. "I paid $50 to teach him to listen." I'll pay the same to teach the town." The laughter came hard and bright and easy at that. Men love to pay for the joke they are already telling. Cora walked away through it, her heart hammering, her hands empty and tingling, Harrow's breath still somewhere on her skin like smoke. Ephraim Pike didn't smile when she stopped at the smithy. He simply turned the bellows twice and said, "You've got 3 days before Crane calls in what he can call in." "I know. And a horse the town expects will kill you." "He won't," she said, but left room in the words for maybe. Ephraim picked up a hoof knife and set it down again. "Ropes are too loud for him." "I don't plan on starting with ropes." He nodded. "Then you'll need time. I can fix a hinge and look the other way while you use the back pasture." Crane will see what he chooses," Ephraim said, that sentence the shape of his whole life. "You need quiet. Take it. Come by after sundown." Cora swallowed. "Thank you." He met her eyes then, and something eased in his face. "It won't be about proving them wrong," he said. "That part never fills the belly." She thought of the ranch house her mother patched until it looked like a prayer quilt, of the cottonwood that had watched her grow, of the wind that knew her name. "No," she said. "It's about keeping a promise." Tom Finch was waiting by the livery, with a pocket full of courage and a face striped with old fear. "Mr. Crane sent everybody home," he whispered, "on account of he says the mustang don't need eyes." Tom spat that last word like it burned him. "Do you want to help me, Tom?" Cora asked. He counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Then fetch me a sack of oats, a coil of old clothesline, and a lantern with the wick turned so low it'll barely remember its fire." They carried the things to the back pasture behind Ephraim's, where the fence was sound and the grass ran like a river under the moon. Cora set the lantern on the ground and turned it until light was more thought than thing. Harrow stood inside the rough pen they'd made from panels borrowed and favors owed, his shape a small knight against the larger one. Cora didn't enter. Not yet. She poured a slip of oats outside the panels and stepped away. The stallion lifted his head, listened, and did not come. "Everything loud has had him," Cora said softly. "We will be the quietest thing he knows." Tom watched, solemn as a judge. "You gonna sing to him?" Cora hummed that same low ribbon of shady grove. Tom's shoulders dropped. The night laid itself down beside them. 10 minutes, then 15. Harrow grazed, edged toward the oats, tested the new scent in the air, and finally, with a long breath, put his muzzle where grain met ground. Cora didn't move. When he finished, she poured another small slip, then another, leading away from the gate, not into anything, not toward anything. Just a path with no surprise at the end. "Tomorrow," she whispered to the dark, when Harrow stood easy and Tom's eyelids drooped. "Tomorrow we teach halter without touching a rope." Morning brought heat and Crane with it. He set himself at the fence rail like a crow on a pew. "Thought I'd see the show I sold," he said, tapping his ledger corner. "You remember the part where the horse gets broke?" Cora wore her mother's work skirt with the let-down hem, and carried a loop of clothesline coiled slack, tied to a halter she'd softened in oil and patience. "I remember the part where he learns to trust." Virgil strolled up behind Crane, all teeth and cologne that fought the smell of horse and lost. "Trust is a whip used with the handle first," he said. "Tell you what, miss, let me put a saddle on him, and I'll split the coin at the end. The coin would be mine." He laughed. "You have a language for beasts, I'll give you that." Cora opened the gate and stepped in with Harrow. She kept the rope coiled small like a sleeping snake and let the halter hang over her wrist. She moved the way she wanted him to move, smooth, curved, never aiming straight at him. When he turned his hindquarters to say no, she turned hers to say she'd wait. When he offered her his shoulder, she breathed yes. It took an hour to touch the air at his neck, and another to bring the halter to the place where breath met jaw. Then 2 seconds to break it all when a boy shouted and a tin pail fell and Blue Mesa forgot how to hold its noise. Harrow blew apart like a storm. No buck, no rear, just every muscle swearing it would never be tied. He ran the pen and hit the corner where fence met fence and the old nail. Cora had meant to pull but didn't. The clothesline snapped from her hand and trailed like a snake with a bad idea. Virgil whistled. Cora swallowed panic and stilled herself to a statue. She let the rope lie and looked at the ground where the rope was not. She hummed, slowly, like a picture coming through dust. Harrow slowed. He found the end of his fear and stood with it, shaking head low. Cora moved to the rope's tail and picked it up without lifting it. She fed it through her hands, over, under, until she held the place near his muzzle, while her eyes stayed on his shoulder. She spoke not to him, but to the shape of quiet between them. Good. When the halter finally settled over his face, it was not a victory. It was a term agreed. Crane tapped his ledger. One morning he said, "You'll run out of them." Virgil curled his lip. "You'll run out of luck first." Ephraim, who had said nothing, set a bucket of water by the fence. "You've both miscounted," he said. "She'll run out of needing to prove it to you." That afternoon, the halter turned to a snake again. Not by mistake, by memory. Harrow lifted his head and hit the end of the line when a door slammed and a laugh cut sharp, and in an instant he wasn't in a blue Mesa pen under a white sky. He was small and somewhere cruel and tied to a dead tree with a rawhide bite that never gave back. Cora felt the old story in him hit her hands like lightning. She did not hold. She walked with the lightning until it bled into ground. "Easy," she breathed, even when she was dragged half a yard. "Easy, I'll be what they were not." He stopped. She set the line down and let it draw a quiet circle on the dirt between them. "Good," she said again, with her throat and her bones, not just her mouth. Virgil watched from the shade with an expression that said he saw a trick he couldn't buy in a catalog. "Take the bit," he called, tossing a ring snaffle so it chimed on the fence. "Teach him the end of the lesson." Cora didn't pick it up. "He's still learning the first word." Tom Finch brought a little brass bell after sundown, shy about it. "It rings soft," he said. "Mama used to call me with it." Cora listened to the bell's voice, a warm, round sound that didn't bite. "We can make this a promise, not a command." They taught it in the dark. When the world was fewer edges, Cora paired the bell with a handful of grain, then with a touch at the base of Harrow's mane, then with nothing but a breath. The horse learned the note meant ease and enough and something gentle. When he came to it, Cora didn't grab. She gave. "Folks say you're foolish," Tom murmured, half apologizing for a town he couldn't fix. "Folks say a lot of things," Cora said, "most of them about themselves." By week's end, Virgil needed a crowd the way a gambler needs a sunset, because night is the only time he forgets he's losing. He nailed a poster to Pennyworth's Bronx show Saturday. "Watch a devil kneel." He scribbled a flourish under it and made sure Crane saw him do it. Cora read the poster and felt heat crawl her neck. "He'll try to make Harrow fight. He'll try to make you fight him," Ephraim said. "That's the real trick. What if we answer with something no one expects? You already have." She looked toward the pen where Harrow stood with one hind leg cocked, chewing the day into a quieter shape. "Not yet," she said. "Not enough for a town to stop laughing." Ephraim's mouth moved like he might say the thing he shouldn't. He said it anyway. "They'll stop when the horse bows, won't they?" Cora remembered her mother's hands, flat on a gelding's neck, moving down until both horse and woman had their noses near the same dust. She remembered a whisper, "Meet him where he is. Invite him lower than fear. If he chooses to," she said. "We can't make that happen. Then make the space where it can." She nodded. "Saturday," she said to the horse, to herself, to the ledger and the bell, and the boy and the quiet. "Saturday we show them a different kind of strong." Virgil Tull made himself busy the way a fly makes itself important, by landing where the food is. He talked loud under the awning, flipped a coin, told stories about Bronx that learned manners at the end of his rope. He made sure Cora could hear him, even when he wasn't looking at her. "Some folks," he said to no one in particular, "think horses speak English if you hum long enough." Oswald Crane nodded like a metronome. "And some folks think debts hum too. They don't. They bite." Sheriff Amos Rudd watched both men like a dog watches men argue over a bone. He already knew who owned it, but he was interested in how they'd lie. He rubbed his 2 coins and finally said, "There'll be no fireworks at your show, Virgil. No tricks. We're not burning down Blue Mesa to watch you grin." Virgil grinned anyway. "Sheriff, I'm an honest sinner. I'll give the crowd what it paid for." Cora kept to the pen and to Harrow's circle of quiet. She taught a little give at the pole with the barest touch, then a lot of breathing when the world clattered. She carried the bell Tom had brought, but she never rang it unless she could keep her heart from ringing with it. Soft, certain, the sound of enough. Ephraim mended a gate latch and said, "You're building a floor under him, so he can choose to come down," she answered. "Lowering the head of a stallion who has lived too high is a holy thing if you do it right." Cora set her hand near Harrow's forelock, never pressing, just letting her fingers become heavy as dusk. When he softened a whisker, she removed the hand. When he braced, she removed herself. She rewarded the thought, not the act, because the act would come when the thought did. By afternoon, she could breathe out and watch his neck give half an inch. By evening, a full inch. Tom saw it and forgot to count before speaking. He's listening with his bones." Cora smiled. "So are we." She pared the head lower with stepping his 4 feet one at a time, not back, not away, but diagonally into a little surrender that looked like a dance step. She did not ask for both at once. She waited until each was easy by itself, then let them meet like neighbors who already shared a fence. Virgil perched on a rail and yawned. "That horse is going to nap through my show." "Then nap near him," Ephraim said without looking up. Crane came with paper and a pin. "A little indemnity," he said, running a fingernail down a clause that had the word liability in it 3 times and the word you in it 10. "In case your animal chooses violence in public." Harrow breathed, ears forward, and Cora felt like the mustang understood contracts better than most men did. Sheriff Rudd took the paper, read it, and used the pin to scratch out 6 words. "She ain't liable for your mouth, Oswald," he said, "and the sheriff's office is liable for the gate and the crowd. We'll keep the ring clean or the ring won't happen." Crane tapped the ledger corner. Tap, tap. "You turning charitable in your old age, Sheriff?" "I'm turning particular," Rudd said. Nettie Hale stepped around him with a tin of biscuits, thrust it at Cora, and said to Crane, "Some of us learned that if you feed the right thing grows." "What grows when you feed biscuits?" Crane asked. "Men who keep their opinions in their pockets until they earn the right to cash them," Nettie said, and the town cackled, because Nettie had already earned her right a dozen times over. Saturday arrived the way Saturdays do in towns that like to gather, with men shaving twice, women pretending they weren't curious, and children bringing a week's worth of questions to a 1-hour answer. The ring was a borrowed pasture roped into a circle of permission. Sheriff Rudd checked the knots himself and hung a water bucket at each post. "For people and for sense," he said. "Drink either one if you run short." Virgil entered first in a red waistcoat that declared him the opposite of a quiet person. He cracked a long whip once, just air, but the crack was a promise that his world had edges and pain. The crowd pushed in. Laughter was ready. Cora led Harrow to the gate with the halter rope draped, not tight, not loose, like a handclasp you could leave if you needed to. Ephraim walked on the other side, just far enough to be company without being a fence. Tom carried the bell with both hands, careful as a church boy with a candle. Crane stood where the money sat and clicked his pencil like a man making sure some stayed loyal. "Friends," Virgil boomed, "today we see what kindness buys. I'll match it with something that works." He raised his whip like a conductor's baton. "Drop that," Sheriff Rudd said, voice flat. Virgil smiled a little. "It's a line, not a lash. It's a story horses have heard too often," the sheriff replied. "Use your hands if you've got any skill in them." The crowd shifted. A few boos tumbled from the back and died on the short grass. Blue Mesa was no kinder than other towns, but it liked a fair fight when a fair fight was cheaper than a fire. Cora entered the ring and let Harrow walk its edge. She didn't make him, she allowed him. He kept his eye on the people, plus the exit, plus the sky. She hummed so soft it was more a thread in her throat than a sound in the air. When he tried to run the circle, she stepped across his shoulder and drew a smaller figure with her body. "Come smaller with me," it said, "because smaller has more corners to hide in if you need them." He did. He slowed. He blew a breath that loosened something between his ribs and hers. Virgil, at the opposite side, made himself the sun and tried to pull the horse's orbit. He clucked. He stepped hard. He lifted his hands in a shape that said, "I am big." Harrow flicked an ear at him and went back to the woman who made small things safe. "Do your party trick," a miner shouted. "Make him curtsy." Cora didn't look at the man. She looked at Harrow's forehead, and then the dirt near his left forefoot, and she breathed down through her spine until she felt nearer the ground than her fear. The stallion watched that lowering and dipped his head just enough to tell her he still had a choice. Virgil saw the moment and couldn't stand to let it be. He stepped fast and snapped his fingers near Harrow's flank. The mustang rose halfway onto thought, neck tight, eyes white at the rim. The crowd inhaled. Sheriff Rudd's hand twitched toward his gun, not because he needed a gun, but because habit sometimes reaches for old tools. Cora didn't grab. She moved so that the rope lay slack between them and put her own knee to the grass. She didn't ask for a bow. She offered one. Harrow's head stayed high, then sifted down like grain when the hopper finally opens. He brought his muzzle level with her shoulder and then lower, just enough that he could smell the earth without tasting fear in it. The ring went quiet in the exact way a church goes quiet when everybody is trying to decide if God is inside the building or outside of it. Tom Finch on the rail clutched the bell and forgot to ring it. Virgil couldn't breathe in quiet. He stepped once more and hissed, "There's the door, devil," and flicked his fingers toward the gate, the way a bad hand flicks a fly off a wound. Harrow's hindquarters bunched, then unbunched. He did not bolt. He put one knee into the soft dirt, and then the other leg thought about following, not because the finger had told him a thing, but because the woman kneeling had. Cora did not touch him. She kept her hands at her sides, palm down to the same earth he was smelling, and let her breath be the only thing that moved. Something gave, something not in the horse. Virgil, small in the place inside him he never let show, took 2 angry steps and reached as if to yank the halter. Ephraim got there first. He didn't move fast. He moved early and put a hand square on Virgil's wrist. "Don't," the blacksmith said. Virgil tried to pull back. He didn't. Ephraim's fingers were iron by habit. Sheriff Rudd stepped between them so smoothly it looked like water, thinking about a new path, and said, "You want to earn your coin, you watch and you learn." Virgil's mouth worked and found no purchase. Cora breathed Shady Grove like a promise. Tom, as if his hands finally remembered one job they'd been given, lifted the bell and let it speak once, round and low. Harrow's ears flicked forward. He drifted his head toward the sound, then toward the woman breathing close to the ground. He bent, not a circus trick, not a forced fold, but a slow surrender of height. One knee went down, and then his chest shortened the distance to earth until his muzzle could brush dust. He did not kneel to a person. He bowed to a space that had become safe. Cora bowed with him, forehead near the same patch of earth, and stayed there long enough that the crowd had to decide whether to laugh or to shut their mouths. They shut them. The wind said something small in the grass that sounded like agreement. Nettie Hale's apron string swayed. Crane's pencil stopped clicking. For a heartbeat that belonged to the town, nobody moved at all. Then Harrow rose, shook once like water leaving a coat, and bumped Cora's shoulder with his muzzle, the kind of bump that says, "You did not lie." The ring exhaled as if it had been holding its breath since last winter. It takes only one man to ruin a moment, and only one boy to save it. The miner who had called for a curtsy found his courage in company and yelled, "Trick!" because he could not bear a world where he had misjudged softness. 6 more took the cheap road with him. Tom Finch, who had more old fear than any of them, and had learned to come out the other side, rang the bell again, not to command, but to remind. Harrow turned his head toward the sound, away from the shout, and the crowd could see with its own eyes how the horse chased gentleness over noise. Sheriff Rudd raised one hand. "You paid for a show," he said. "You got one. Anybody who wants blood can bite his own lip." Nettie Hale barked a laugh. "Or his pencil," she added, looking at Crane. Crane's mouth thinned. He began to calculate how to be seen agreeing with the side that had just won. Virgil had the sense to act hurt. "Well now," he said, smarting and smiling, "you've all seen the ladies' hymn book. Here's mine." He reached into a satchel and produced a bridle with a Spanish bit all too heavy for a green mouth. "I'll put a saddle on him and ride to the far fence in 3 minutes. Then we'll see what the army pays for." "Not with that," Ephraim said, voice low. "It's a bit," Virgil replied. "Legal, common, and effective." "It's a blade," Ephraim said. Cora lifted a hand. "I won't allow it." Virgil widened his grin. "You sold the horse to the town when you sold the ticket." Sheriff Rudd shook his head. "No, son. She bought him from Crane. You sold talk from yourself." Virgil looked at Crane for help and found a banker instead of a friend. Crane's eyes said, "I am with the coin. The coin has moved." "Put it away," the sheriff added. Virgil did, slowly, like a man swallowing a whistle. Cora could have left then with the bow belonging to the day. But the town needed to see something else. That yielding is not the end of strength. It's the beginning of partnership. She stood, dusted her knees, and laid a palm on Harrow's shoulder, first touch all morning. He accepted it without flinch. She stepped his forefoot once, twice, asked for his head as low as he could bear, then led him 3 steps and stopped. He stopped without rope pressure. She lifted the halter knot and slipped it off. A hum ran through the crowd like somebody had let a secret out by accident. The stallion stood free in a ring with a gait and 100 reasons to run. He did not. He touched Cora's sleeve, then the bell Tom held, as if to say the sound and the woman were now the same sort of promise. "Damn," someone whispered. "Reverend." Virgil's jaw set so tight you could have struck sparks from his teeth. When Cora walked Harrow toward the gate without a line, 2 things happened at once. The first was simple. The horse followed, because the space beside her was easier than the space without her. The second was complicated. A man who had never learned to be small tried to prove he wasn't. Virgil lunged. He wasn't reaching for Cora. He was reaching for the horse's jaw. Maybe to prove a point. Maybe to break it. He didn't get there. Ephraim was already moving. No punch. No throw. He folded Virgil's arm and put him on his knees with a blacksmith's ease. The kind of control that makes iron obey without shouting. Sheriff Rudd's hand arrived on the back of Virgil's neck and pressed him into humility. "Law," the sheriff said, "is mostly keeping men from demonstrating how stupid they can be." Virgil spat dust. "You like her song because it makes you feel good," he snarled. "It ain't the world." Rudd looked at Cora leading a loose stallion past a crowd that had temporarily remembered itself. He looked at Tom holding a bell like a brave thing. He looked at Ephraim easing his grip the moment Virgil stopped fighting. "It's the part of the world I'm paid to encourage," the sheriff said. Crane, catching the wind in town opinion the way a sail catches a breeze, cleared his throat. "Miss Whitcomb," he said just loud enough, "about that paper. There's no call to press the Whitcomb note early if your raw training services bring attention. Perhaps we could structure things." "Structure," Nettie repeated with relish. Oswald's word for not drowning when the river rises. Cora kept her eye on Harrow and her ear on Crane. "I'll pay what I owe, not more, not faster, not with tricks you can change later." Crane's fingers twitched on his pencil. "Fair enough. Write it," Sheriff Rudd said. Crane hesitated. "Write it," Rudd repeated, and there was iron in it. "In front of the town. Men like Crane do not often blush." He did, a little. He wrote terms plain as fence posts and signed, and handed it to Cora with a smile that was mostly teeth trying to remember they were human. She folded the page and did not smile back. "Thank you," she said, to the law that made him do it, not the man who hadn't wanted to. Cora didn't raise her arms or bow to the crowd. She walked out with Harrow at her hip, and Tom at her other side, and Ephraim behind them like the back door of a church. Quiet necessary. Nettie met them at the gate with a tin cup. "Water," she said, and then to Tom, "For the boy first." He held the sound. Tom drank and tried not to let the water show on his chin. Harrow reached for the cup, and Cora held it so the stallion could nose the rim and understand that sometimes people shared what they had without wanting anything back. "Does he get a sugar?" someone asked, because people like to make magic into household rules. No, Cora said. He gets me not pulling when he's scared. A few folks looked puzzled. A few looked thoughtful. One or two looked ashamed of laughs they'd spent earlier in the week. Come on, Ephraim said softly. Before the men who talk for a living find their tongues again. They brought Harrow to the back pen by Ephraim's, not the livery, so Crane couldn't pretend ownership by proximity. Nettie sent a boy with stew and bread. Cora ate with the horse in view and the bell on the fence post, like a lamp left low. Her hands shook now that they had time. Ephraim sat on an upturned bucket and mended a strap that wasn't broken, because sometimes people who work with leather need the shape of mending more than the use of it. He said, "You need to lie down for an hour." "I will." Cora lied, because she had 50 chores to do, and one promise she was scared to admit out loud. "Don't make me carry you," Ephraim said, not smiling. Cora huffed something like a laugh. "You'd better not try." Tom came with a jar wrapped in cloth. "Nettie says put this on your hands," he mumbled. "Says gentleness burns too." Cora unwrapped the jar and breathed in the smell of fat and mint and something sweet. "Tell her thank you." Tom scuffed his shoe, counted to 5, then blurted, "Miss Cora, did he bow because of the bell or because of you?" Cora touched the jar to her cheek, cool in the heat. "Because of both," she said. "I can be brave because of you ringing it too." Tom blinked hard and nodded like she'd given him a job he wanted more than he feared. In the dark that night, the town's applause, such as it was, fell away and left the noises people live with. Somewhere a man sang a tired hymn as if it owed him money. Somewhere a couple argued about tomorrow. Somewhere Virgil discovered how empty a room can feel when your talent is louder than your skill. Cora woke to the particular hush that means a horse has remembered a bad thing. She slipped her boots on and went to the pen. Harrow stood rigid, head high, eyes seeing something that wasn't there. She didn't speak. She didn't hum. She stood with him until his muscles figured out they were in Blue Mesa and not wherever they had been taken by memory. Then she breathed a little louder than before and he matched it. In the far dark, a foot scuffed. Cora turned and saw a shadow detach itself from the fence. Virgil. He stayed outside the panel. "I wasn't going to touch him," he said, though nobody had said he would. "I was going to watch. You do it too quiet to learn by, then go back to noise," Cora answered. His laugh had no joy in it. "You hum soft and act like God kisses your hands, but you like the bow. You liked it a lot." Cora considered arguing. "Didn't. It was beautiful," she said, "and it was his." Virgil leaned his head against the post like a man who has run a long way from himself and found no destination. "I can make a horse go where I want. I can make him do a thing. The boy with the bell can't do that, and neither can you if the horse says no." "Then we'll listen longer," Cora said. "Listening is not a job," he said bitterly. "It's the only one that outlives us," she said without heat. He pushed off the post. "You think today changed something? It changed where the town spends its Saturday, maybe. It didn't change what they believe." He faded into the dark like a bad idea you know will return. Cora didn't answer the night. She stood with Harrow until his head lowered to the bar of the panel and his breath warmed her forearms. In the week after the ball, Cora found something sweeter than applause. Chores. She put a gentle weight across Harrow's back, a folded blanket, then a pad, then the smallest saddle she could borrow from Nettie's boarder, who had gone north for freight. Each time she waited for the horse to tell her whether yesterday had survived into today. He let the saddle be a thing on his back. He did not want the girth. She listened. She tightened a hole and loosened too. She found a place where breath could live. Ephraim came with a hackamore he'd braided himself, soft as patience and strong as truth. "No metal in the mouth," he said. "Nothing that reminds him of hands that cut." Cora held it and felt like someone had handed her both a tool and an oath. Tom stood on a fence rail, counting quietly as if numbers could steady the world. "He's taller when he's calm," the boy observed. "Maybe we are too," Ephraim said. They didn't plan it, but towns plan themselves around success. On the next Saturday, folks drifted to the same pasture. No poster this time, The news was the kind that moves in bread lines and at pump handles. Sheriff Rudd hung the same water buckets. Nettie brought lemonade that tasted like forgiveness and told anyone who asked that it was lemons, sugar, and deciding to sweeten things on purpose. Cora led Harrow in with a hackamore and no saddle. She didn't intend to make him do anything special. She intended to do ordinary things well where people could see. She asked for a circle the size of a washtub and got something like it. She asked for a stop next to Tom and got it with an extra step. She accepted both. "Bow!" someone shouted from the back, because people like to see the highest mountain again once they know the path. Cora didn't answer. She didn't refuse either. She just didn't ask. She breathed low. Harrow put his head there. Virgil wasn't on the rail. He was in the shade by the cottonwood, dressed plainer than last week. He watched like a man who has found out his enemy is not a person but an idea. Crane found Cora after and said, "I have a buyer who likes shows. Gentle ones fetch coin these days. I can broker. I can talk," Cora said. Crane's smile pinched. "I charge a fee to listen." Sheriff Rudd, appearing as if he had been sent by the god of timing, said, "I'll carry the letter to the buyer. My fee is that you don't let Oswald carry it." Crane bristled. "Abuse of office." Rudd shook his head. "Abuse prevention. Different thing." Ephraim added, "If a man wants his percentage, he can go back to the days when he held the lead rope himself." Crane tugged his cuff and went looking for someone smaller to be large at. Trouble has better ears than goodness. It heard there was calm in Blue Mesa, and came to ask if it was true. A wagon from out near Mesa, dry rolled in with a gelding, whose eye showed too much and whose ribs showed more. The teamster said, "He's rank. I need him to pull, or I need him to not eat." Cora looked at the gelding and at the boy hanging off the back of the wagon. 9 maybe, with a look that said he'd learned to sleep in corners. She said, "Leave him 2 days. Come back on the 3rd. The teamster laughed. "Make him pray in that time? Make him unlearn one bad thing," she said. She took the gelding to the back pen and let Harrow watch from the next one over, because sometimes healing is learning that other creatures are healing too. She rang the bell once and put it away, because sometimes healing is learning that the bell only rings when it means something. The gelding tried to bite, then to kick, then to turn himself inside out. Cora let him perform the whole play and did not clap for the villain. She offered water, then space, then the idea that hands can be as quiet as grass. By sundown he was not fixed. He was tired. She took that as a beginning and not a prize. On the 2nd day, Tom whispered numbers at him. When he thought nobody could hear, the gelding listened to the count as if it were a rope tied to a better day. On the 3rd, the teamster came back and watched without jokes while the horse put his head low all by himself. "How much?" the man asked, voice scraped thin. "First you cut the check that pays my feed bill," Cora said. "Then you cut the habit of yelling. That one costs more." He set his jaw. "I can try." "Then it's worth more than coin," she said. "Come back in a week. I'll show you how the harness goes on without your hands going loud." Blue Mesa did what towns do when confronted with proof. It edited itself. The men who had laughed learned a different laugh that sounded like clearing the throat before a compliment. Women nodded at Cora the way women nod at each other when they recognize a job that will never get you a parade. Boys stood straighter around Tom because sometimes bravery is catching. Virgil came to the pen at dusk with his hat in his hands, which made him look briefly like a boy at the door of a new school. "You were right," he said without preamble. "Not about the world, about the part of it that's worth saving." Cora didn't make him say more. "You can stay," she said, "if you can stand not being the loudest thing." He nodded once, sharply, like a man agreeing to pull his own tooth. "I can learn." "Then you can teach later," she said, "but not today." He put the hat back on and stood where Tom stood when Tom wanted to watch without being seen. Crane, for his part, discovered religion in the form of ledgers that balanced even when he wasn't the one pressing the scale. He charged for stalls and feed and tried, occasionally, to charge for things like air and shade. Sheriff Rudd charged him for the privilege of being told no. Nettie charged nobody for biscuits and kept charging herself to be kind. The morning the first snow threatened in the far mountains, Cora saddled Harrow with Ephraim's hackamore and rode out to the edge of the Whitcomb land. The cottonwood, that had once watched her mother set her jaw in summer wind, stood like a tall old man who knew which stories to keep. Cora touched the trunk and said, "We are still here." Harrow's ears twitched. He bumped her boot with his nose like a friend who speaks a three-word language very well. "I am too." Ephraim came up the path leading a pack mare loaded with fence staples and a coil of smooth wire. "I'm going to help mend until you tell me to stop," he said. "I'll tell you at dark," she replied. "That's not stopping," he said. "That's today," she answered. They set posts and shared a canteen. Tom counted nails because he liked the sound of numbers that ended in done. Nettie sent a pie out with a boy and a note. Cora didn't read until later because some kindnesses are hot when they arrive and warm when they're remembered. At noon, Sheriff Rudd rode by and tipped his hat. He didn't say congratulations or I told you so. He said, "There's a place for a sign by the South Road. Folks like to be told how to behave by wood." He paused. "You choose the words." Cora thought about it and later, with Ephraim's steady script, hammered a plank that read, "Lower your voice, lower your hands, raise what you love." The sign did not make Blue Mesa perfect. Nothing does. It made 3 men think before jerking a rein, and made one woman put a little coin in a jar for a boy who rang a bell at the right time. That was enough. That night, under a sky clean as a promise, Cora stood at the pen and watched Harrow breathe. He had bowed once in public and 1,000 times in private to sleep, to drink, to graze, to listen. She bowed too, the way a woman bows to work she chose and to love she didn't force, and to a town learning to change by inches. Ephraim stood beside her with his hands black at the creases and said, "I reckon you have your mother's way." Cora's throat went tight. "I reckon I have mine." He nodded and didn't reach for her. She didn't step away. They watched the horse watch the stars. Behind them, in the quiet they'd made big enough to live in, Blue Mesa forgot how to laugh at the wrong things and remembered how to be audience to the right ones. And somewhere near the South Road, where a plank caught moonlight, the words did what words can do when they are matched by hands. They held. Word travels faster than freight when a story sounds impossible. 2 weeks after the pasture crowd had watched Harrow lower his head beside Cora, a man in a tailored trail coat and polished boots arrived in Blue Mesa with a letter of introduction and a checkbook big enough to embarrass the bank clerk. His name was Samuel Dre, and he said he represented interests in Santa Fe who appreciate well-mannered stock. Crane found him first, of course. "She's a marvel with the animal," Crane told Dre, voice syrupy. "And I'm the one who facilitated the transaction." He left out that the facilitation was mostly Cora ignoring him. Dre asked to see the stallion work. Sheriff Rudd arranged the ring and set the rules. No whips, no bits, no shoving a show into something it wasn't. Cora brought Harrow in with the hackamore, the bell on the fence post, and Tom standing by. Dre was the kind of man who measured value by how fast it responded to his cues. When Harrow didn't spring to his voice, Dre frowned. "He doesn't answer noise," Cora said evenly. "He answers understanding." She breathed low, touched the base of Harrow's neck, and stepped sideways into the small circle. Harrow followed. She bowed. Harrow bent, not deep, not as low as that first Saturday, but enough that it was clear the horse had made the choice himself. Dre's frown eased. "I see it," he said at last. "It's not obedience, it's agreement. That's worth more than either," Cora replied. Dre made an offer that could have settled every debt she'd inherited. Cora listened, then shook her head. "I'm not selling him. I'm building with him." Dre looked at her for a long time, then tucked the checkbook away. "Then I hope you charge admission." Virgil had been keeping to the edges of the back pen, watching more than talking. One morning, while Cora was mending a fence line, he asked if he could work the skittish gelding from Mesa dry. "No rope tricks," she warned. He nodded, went into the pen empty-handed, and sat on an overturned bucket. At first, the gelding circled like a buzzard, avoiding scent, but Virgil stayed put. No clucks, no stomps, just breathing. It took 40 minutes for the gelding to step close enough to sniff his sleeve. Virgil didn't reach out. He just sat until the horse's muzzle brushed his arm of its own accord. When he came out, Sweat plastering his hair, he said, "That was harder than riding out a buck." Cora smiled a little. "You listened longer than he thought you would." Virgil shook his head. "I listened longer than I thought I would." Crane tried, once more, to pull the story into his ledger by suggesting a partnership for public exhibitions. Cora refused again, this time in front of Nettie, Ephraim, and Sheriff Rudd. "I won't turn him into a circus," she said. "Every bow he gives is his to choose. I won't sell that choice for ticket stubs." Rudd grunted his approval. Nettie handed Cora a paper bag of biscuits like a prize. Crane tapped his ledger and muttered something about missed opportunity. "Sometimes missing it is the point," Ephraim said. By early winter, the plank Sheriff Rudd had suggested for the South Road had a twin on the North Trail. Riders coming in from both directions now saw the same 3 lines in black paint. "Lower your voice. Lower your hands. Raise what you love." Some ignored it. Some read it and rode on. A few, the ones who stayed long enough to see Harrow move with Cora in the back pasture, carried the words away with them like something pocket-sized and useful. Snow came for real one morning, whitening the cottonwood branches and muffling the town's edges. Harrow stood in the drift, head high, steam curling from his nostrils. Cora saddled him, pulled her scarf close, and rode out to check the line fence. Ephraim caught up halfway to the ridge, riding the pack mare. "Thought you might need company." "I'll take it," she said. They worked in easy silence, setting posts, tightening wire. Tom came trudging up the hill, cheeks red from the cold, carrying the bell in one mittened hand. "Just in case," he said. They didn't need it, but when the work was done and the sun was dipping, Tom rang it once. Harrow lifted his head, flicked an ear, and walked to where Cora stood. She bowed. He lowered his head until it was level with hers. No crowd, no ledger, no bargain. Just the same agreement that had started in a dusty pen when the whole town laughed. They rode home slow, the snow falling soft, the sign on the South Road catching the last of the light.